Thank you, Sean, Enzo, Bogi, and Agnes for the session. We are excited to see what payment digitalization will bring to the industry. Next, on vertical farming, we have John Purcell from Unfold and Yongju Park from Farm 8. John is driving efficiency and sustainability in agriculture with genetics. Farm 8, on the other hand, is the next generation farming facilities deployed at the metro stations across Seoul. Moderated by Daniel Su, we will look into how vertical farming is reshaping the future of agriculture.
Hello, everyone. My name is Daniel Su. I'm an advisor here for Foodland Ventures. My background is I've worked in upstream ag startups, downstream produce retailers, as well as at some VC funds. I've seen many vertical farm outfits come and go over the years. So I'm very excited to have this panel and moderate it on vertical farming. So first, let me welcome our two very distinguished speakers. First, John Purcell. Over there is the president and CEO of Unfold. He has over 30 years of experience in crop science innovation, including at Monsanto and Bayer. And John is joining us today from the East Coast of the US. So good evening, John.
Thanks, Daniel. Nice to be here.
Second, we have Mr. Yongju Park. He is the CMO and EVP at Farm 8, which is a vertical farm operator and marketer of produce. He has over 30 years of experience in brand strategy, global marketing, and product innovation, both in food as well as in the IT industries. Yong joins us today from South Korea. So good morning, Yong.
Hi, nice to meet you.
Excellent. So again, super excited to have this conversation. Vertical farming, I feel like gets a lot of hype, even though it's actually been around for decades. And you each bring, I think, perspectives that can help our audience get beyond that hype and closer to reality. So I'm going to just kind of start with some questions around that. First to John at Unfold. Unfold provides superior seeds tailored to vertical farming. How do you respond to the questions that some people have about, basically why control crop genetics when the vertical farms already control the whole environment? What don't they understand about vertical farming, and what's the additional upside that you guys are providing that people are missing?
Yeah, for me, it gets down to really one of the basic equations of plant breeding. It's an equation that's pretty simple. It's called G by E by M, which is basically genetics or genotype, by environment, by management. And so what it means is you think about those three elements and how do they factor into how the crop actually performs during the production cycle. In the case of vertical farming, what's really cool is you have such really sophisticated and exquisite management techniques to control the environment. But it doesn't mean the G part of the equation, the genotype or the genetics, aren't important. It means you actually have a better opportunity to really leverage those genetics. Which you think about when you're breeding for crops that go into open field or for farming outdoors, you can do all the breeding you can, but if the environmental conditions change, if you have dramatic shifts in water or in rain, or in temperatures, the genetics can only take you so far. What's great about vertical is you have these incredible management techniques to control the environment, which means that genetics that you hone for that production system will perform the same way 365 days a year. And that gives you the consistency in the produce that really will pay off at the consumer level. So for me, it gives a tremendous opportunity to use all the tools of modern biology to really drive the genetics honed specifically for vertical farming, because you got the E handled by the M, which means the G can really perform at its optimal performance. So.
Got it. So it's a gem, a nice mnemonic there.
Yeah.
So yeah, these pictures of these beautiful vertical farms and the different racks and lighting is really just the E part, and there's more to it than just that.
Yeah, it's E and the M. It's really how do you manage it to control that environment, and so that's
Right.
it. But the G, I think, is getting a lot more attention now. Companies like Unfold, but other seed companies, et cetera, realizing that that's kind of the missing piece at this point is how do you now take full advantage of genetics specifically honed for vertical farming environments.
Got it. Okay. Thanks. Young, I mean, so you guys are actually operating these racks and lights and essentially the vertical farms. I feel like, again, going to the hype, the mainstream popular imagination is farm to table. So people cite that vertical farming, the big benefit is that you can decentralize it, grow it by the consumers, and reduce the logistics costs as well as the environmental footprint. But I noticed that, Farm 8, which is a pretty, I think you guys have been running this operation 15, 20 years. Your production is actually pretty centralized in a rural area outside of Pyeongtaek, not in downtown Seoul, for example. So can you share with our audience a more nuanced understanding of vertical farming as a business operation based on Farm 8's experience?
I think, first of all, we are headquartered in Pyeongtaek, which is about, like hour from downtown Seoul. So we have a major indoor vertical farm in Pyeongtaek. We call T Farm 1 and T Farm 2 is located in Pyeongtaek. And then we also have another big farm in Cheonan, which is another. And then we have T Farm 4 just completed in downtown Seoul. So it's one of the biggest indoor vertical farm located in the center of Seoul.
Okay.
Right. So I see the opportunity for smart farm in many aspects. One, we can build large scale indoor vertical farm outside of the city and then producing the larger amount of produces there. But we also do the urban farming. As I mentioned to you, we have farm in downtown Seoul, and then we also doing so-called metro farm, which is indoor vertical farm in 5 subway stations in Seoul, right? And then another opportunity we are actually seeing is actually building indoor vertical farms in retail outlets. Mm-hmm. So we have indoor vertical farms in the Megamart, which is one of the large hypermarket in Korea. Okay. And we have indoor vertical farm in IKEA in Seoul. And IKEA actually uses produces from indoor vertical farm to serve their the salad restaurants, salad cafe in Seoul. And then we also work with many food and beverage companies and restaurants in Seoul and outside of Seoul. And one of the interesting one is if you guys know the Korean barbecue, right? And sure. When people eat Korean barbecue, they actually eat with vegetables.
Yeah.
So we actually installed small indoor vertical farms in several Korean barbecue restaurants, and that's receiving very well applause from our consumers. So if I recap, we try to utilize all different opportunities we can use for indoor vertical farms. Another example would be we are also producing produces in Antarctica. There is a Korean research center in Antarctica. We actually sent our container smart farms to Antarctica, and they are actually producing various vegetables and fruits there.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have Farm 8 and your perspective, because I do feel like a lot of media focuses on these recent startups, often from Western markets, whereas you guys have been doing this for a while. But it strikes me that T1, your first farm, again, was centralized outside of Seoul, and so the impression I get is that the core business is built around a centralized system, And there are very exciting recent experiments in the subway, in Antarctica. But I'm curious why it didn't happen the other way around. Why was T1 not in Seoul if all these things we hear about vertical farming were true?
I think to me it's two different perspectives. If you are supplying raw vegetables to consumers or to restaurants and in the city, then that's one type of business. But another type of business Farm Aid is doing is we actually has a processing factory sitting next to the big the T Farm 1 and T Farm 2 in Pyeongtaek. So it's not we actually do cutting the vegetables and we create a salad mix. We actually create the we call farm mix. It's like the meal kit type of product. So one of the business, the main business also is supplying raw produces to our B2B consumers and B2 the consumers, the users, and the users.
Right. And
but we are also positioning as a food company and using produces from Smart Farm and create various product including.
I see. So you're describing, on one hand, the vertical farming for the production of the produce, but there's also a whole other value add kind of business, salads, finished products, mixes, and that perhaps that business is more easily centralized, which kind of explains how Farm Aid evolved in this way.
Yeah, and then also even though the largest farm is located outside of Seoul, from harvest to getting to the hands of consumers is within 2 days. So that's pretty quick. Yeah,
sure. I think, South Korea is a relatively small market versus the United States. So, but, in that relatively small, like I still notice that it's not in downtown, not in the beginning. But yeah, you were missing consumers as well as customers. And there's a good, difference. Like B2B customers are hotels and retailers, whereas consumers, they actually want a finished salad and they'll buy that. So I'm kind of curious, over the years, what has been the Korean consumers' response to Farm Aid's products and indoor vertical farming in general? And, follow-on question is, having been to all the markets that you've worked in, how unique are those reactions or behaviors versus universal to other markets outside Korea?
Korean customers are very difficult to satisfy, as you know. But we are actually quite surprised. We are getting good reaction from our consumers. One of the surprising thing, especially happened this year, is we are selling the raw produce even with the roots to one of the major supermarkets, and saying it's like freshly harvested, right? And we thought all Korean consumers actually prefer the vegetables which is already processed and cleaned and packaged, but this kind of raw vegetables with the roots are getting huge sales in those stores, and realizing the Korean consumers now really understand we call clean eating, healthy eating, and then they think the vegetable with the roots, freshly harvested close to the stores, they think it's healthier and fresher and tasty.
Fascinating. So just don't clean the things, and actually consumers, the response is pretty positive.
Yeah, and then as you know, the produces from indoor vertical farm, they don't have to actually clean. It's already clean. You can just eat it is, right? And another big thing is the Korea has problem with the air pollution, right? The microdust issue.
Okay.
But the produces from indoor vertical farm is basically pollution free. That's another big benefit for consumers.
I mean, on Farm Aid, on these consumer products, on the packaging, are you communicating these things? No air pollution, fresh vertical farm. Is that part of the marketing? What's in, what's out?
Yeah, we cannot say pollution free if we want to, because that message can actually create negative image for the traditional farming, right? Because
Okay.
we say we are pollution free. We are not affected by the micro dust.
Okay.
We want to say that, but we don't also want to hurt our traditional farming and give the vegetables from traditional farming is polluted by micro dust.
Sure.
Right.
Okay.
But more and more people visit our metro farm, which is in the subway station. People actually looking at those farm, indoor vertical farm, in the building. They actually realize, those vegetables are clean.
Mm-hmm. And again, though, on your packaging, then, do you say this is from a vertical farm?
The packaging, we used to say it's from a vertical farm, but now I am actually changing that to branding our vegetables. So instead of saying, these are the vegetables from smart farm or the indoor vertical farm, I basically named our vegetables as farm veggie.
Farm veggie. Okay.
In Korean, it's farm 채소.
Okay.
Which basically represent, my goal is this farm veggie will represent, all the vegetables from smart farm. So we don't have to say, it's from, the smart farm. Farm veggie means clean vegetables, which provide best taste and also freshness.
And then is that brand also used like in the subway?
Yeah.
Smart farm. Okay, so they can associate. So you're creating a brand that people associate, not explicitly with vertical farming, but they've seen the subway station, they tasted it, and they like it. Okay.
And the farm veggie stands for, my brand positioning is, always in season, meaning farm veggie is the vegetable, like probably same in Taiwan and also, right? In Korea, we have concept called certain food is, best to eat in certain season, right? Like certain kind of fish is best in spring, certain type of fruits is best in summer.
Right.
So I'm basically using that concept, saying the vegetables from our smart farm is always in season, year round.
Right.
And which implies it's best quality, best nutrient, best taste, and the best freshness.
And when the consumers are on their subway trip and see the brand and they can also make that connection. This is why it's always available. And again, you've worked in lots of different markets, not just Korea. What parts of these things do you think the audience could take into their markets, and which are maybe just really a Korean sort of thing?
I think in Asia, I can see it's the same kind of attitude from consumers toward the indoor vertical farm product, and we are currently looking into opportunities in Middle East. Middle East is actually different because they don't grow vegetables locally, right? But having this indoor vertical farm in the country, within the country, and producing vegetables and then positioning as a locally produced vegetable, I think that will have a good potential to the consumers in the country. Also talking about the vegetable with roots, the most of vegetables in Middle East countries are imported. And then people are not used to seeing vegetable with roots.
Right.
And having, the vegetables produced from smart farm with roots, I think that has a very strong potential for those countries.
Okay. John, I think I think you made a great point, which is like Korean, consumers are hard to please. I actually find consumers all over the world pretty hard to please. I'm curious, sitting in the US, what resonates or what doesn't connect for you and your experience with consumers?
Yeah, and I think for me, I've been very fortunate. I've been on farms in over 40 countries. I've worked with farmers around the world, but I do think there are always some specific attributes that may be country specific. But I think some of the mega trends, Daniel, pretty much hold. I mean, the trend toward hyper local, the trend toward reducing inputs, the trend toward people trying to make a connection with where their food comes from. And I lived in Europe. I've lived in the U.S. I've spent a lot of time across the globe. And I think that connectivity with what we're eating is true in many parts of the world. And I think I love some of the things John was talking about, because the more we can do to connect consumers with how that food is produced, because we got a huge gap right now. In the US, about 1% of the population is producing food, and the other 99% is putting pictures of food on Instagram, right? I mean, everybody's talking about food, everybody's working with food, but there's just many cases, very little exposure to where that food comes from. But people are asking, we used to be, they asked, how does it taste? How does it look? But now they're asking, tell me that story. Where did it come from? Who grew it? How did they grow it? But that's cool. And I think that's a trend that's out there globally. That, as I say, the move toward hyper local production, the move toward understanding the food story, where it came from, the move toward tell me more about how this is produced. What impact did that have on the earth, and what impact does that have on people are making choices based on that food, on the food production system. But we got a long ways to go, and I love some of the things John was talking about, because the more we can get in front of people how food is produced and start bridging that divide, the better off we're going to be. I think all of us in food and ag have that responsibility to get out beyond just our own circles, our own chain, our own scientific circles, and really engage with the public, or engage with those who are engaging with the public. I know for me, I do a lot of chef conferences. One advantage, you get great food at those conferences, but the other advantage is you're talking with individuals who have massive audiences. And if we can get them talking about how technology and innovation can play a role to give the consumers the experience they're looking for, that's good. Because I think in many places in the world, there's this romantic notion we got to go backwards to have the food we want, versus I'm a big believer that technology innovation doesn't matter whether you're looking for organic or local or sustainable. It's innovation and technology that can provide that consumer experience. But for many people, that's not the way they think. But I think some of the examples John gave is great, because people are actually seeing, oh, this is really cool high-tech production, yet the food tastes great. It's obviously fresh.
Right.
It's connecting with them, on side of a core value piece. And then they're seeing, oh, technology and innovation is giving me the kind of experience I want when I think about my fresh produce.
Yeah. In the metro farm we operate, we actually do, we have a kids academy. And this is we actually run an educational program for kids so that they can experience, the indoor vertical farm, and they can also do, their own harvesting in the indoor vertical farm, and they create their own salad. And surprisingly, those kids who harvested vegetables in our indoor vertical farm, they actually like eating those vegetables. And we can actually see a smile from their parents when they actually eat, the vegetables from smart.
They produce, very cool.
Very cool. John, I must ask on consumer education, which is kind of this topic we're on. How is Unfold educating consumers, telling the story of what you guys are doing, which is actually very high tech? I know you guys aren't doing GMO, but plant genetics, like how are you getting that narrative out in a way that's accurate? Because I feel like whether you like it or not, consumer attitude is not necessarily always rational or based on, objective stuff.
Yeah, and I think part of it is, as I say, for us, it's actually getting in the community. We all go to big conferences. We all, talk to, other folks that are within the chain, within produce, et cetera. But for us, it's actually getting out and doing other things, going to garden clubs, going to women's clubs, going to community events, and just sharing, here's what it's like. And the other cool thing we try to do is have every employee tell their own story. Talk about what vertical farming is, but why are you interested in it? Why are you as an employee excited about what vertical farming can do? We have in a program where all employees write a blog and post that, on LinkedIn and other places. Because I think the more we can personalize this, the more we can talk about what drives us and kind of our core values. And which people realize is, for a lot of us in science, what drives us is the same thing that's driving it. So we do want to have a more sustainable food supply. We do want to find out ways to produce food the way that consumers would say they like it produced. So what we try to do is just connect on a on a real human level. And then, like I said earlier, the other thing we try to do is, as often as we can, let's talk to those influencers, because we're a small company, and even a science and tech company. When you think about chefs and food bloggers and food writers, they have a tremendous influence. But if we can get them to our events, if we can talk to them about how our technology innovation is leading to better, fresher produce that tastes great, they are incredible spokespersons for what the technology is about, what innovation can do. And so I do think part of it is doing our own part, but also part of it is understanding who are the influencers in this field, who are the people that really can connect with massive audiences and start to tell the story of where this food comes from and how these new technologies, these new innovations can really provide the consumers with the experience they're looking for. And that's the chefs, the bloggers, the writers. They have audiences well beyond what I have on LinkedIn or other things. We try to do what we can. But fact is, if we're talking to the right folks and they understand and they get it, man, they can be incredible advocates for technology innovation in the food sector.
Okay. Yeah. We call them KOLs over here, key opinion leaders. And for sure, it's kind of like the new way of marketing. I want to turn to your customers. So not necessarily the end users, but the businesses you're selling to. And Unfold, you guys are selling to vertical farm operators. And my question would be, what's the premium that you anticipate growers willing to pay? Another way of asking that is like, what's the benefits? Well, what are the yield increases that Unfold is offering?
Well, no, I think you framed it the right way. And the way I always think about any kind of premium or any kind of pricing strategy, it's always got to be value based and value sharing. The way I've always, my career, I've always tried to say, if we create value for our customers, usually can figure out a way to share that value. So for us, I think what we're really trying to do the way we try to appeal to our customers is being 100% focused on vertical farming, really understanding what the challenges they're facing. And so we can go at this two ways. And in the end, it turns into profitability in their net, right? But you can do that by either providing products that have better sensory traits, better consumer appeal, really growing that top line revenue by having products that are really exciting for their customers, which is the grocery stores or the consumers. But the other way is, what can we do to improve your COG situation, your cost of goods? Because frankly, one of the challenges of vertical, it's a capital intensive. There's cost associated with that. It's amazing technology on the production side, but let's face it, it's not a cheap technology, right? And so if we can have higher yields, so you're getting more per square foot, if we can reduce their input costs, or if we can reduce the amount of energy that's used to produce the same amount of crop, or if we can shave time off this crop cycle, instead of a 28-day, maybe you harvest in 26 days. Mm-hmm. These are all the things we're trying to do with our genetics, because that turns into a cost of goods advantage, which is where they have to compete in many cases. So we try to do it both ways. Let's provide differentiatable product that'll appeal to their customers and the consumers, but then let's also look at where do their costs come in. A lot of it's around energy and around just the cost of running a pretty sophisticated operation. Anything we can do to reduce input, reduce energy, accelerate crop cycle time, then that's going to reduce COGS and help them on the bottom line. And then once you are able to demonstrate through trialing and testing and them using your product that they are getting benefits from that, then you figure out the value sharing, and that's where the premium comes in.
That makes sense. The top line and the bottom, well, the top and the costs.
Right.
I'm curious, just to get concrete. I know it's only been a year, but I know you have like your first sales. I'm curious, just like that first product, what's the crop, and is it a top line kind of value, or is it more of the COGS value?
It's kind of both, but so we are selling lettuce now, which is cool.
Okay.
We're just a year into this thing, so the revenue line is small, but it's we have revenue, which is cool. But we're just at the beginning of this. To be honest with you, we are doing a lot of testing and trialing. Part of the way our deal is structured, we have access to the Bayer germplasm, which is a global germplasm resource Bayer has a huge vegetable seed business. We have the ability to commercialize that in for vertical farms. So we're doing a lot of testing and trialing with customers to see which of those products will work. And then we're also beginning our breeding programs to really develop the second generation of products. But it's almost a biphasic approach, which is let's look at all this great germplasm, test it in the farm, see how it performs in our customers' operations. But then that educates us with then what are the genetics we want to use to really drive our breeding programs, which would be the second and third generation products. So, but I think, I think for, one of the things about vertical farms is their cost structure is different than open field for sure. If you can demonstrate, what we're finding is if you could demonstrate value, that is, it's a product they can produce, a product that they can sell, then you can, I think, create an attractive opportunity for them and for us, and that's what we're finding. But it's early days. I'll be honest with you. We're a year into this. We're just seeing our first revenue, but we're pretty excited about what we can do especially as we get more relationships with vertical farms around the world to really demonstrate the value of the products that we're trying to commercialize.
Makes sense. I mean, we are here with a vertical farm operator, so I cannot help but to ask, Young, what are your thoughts? What's your reaction or feedback for an offering like what John has just described as a vertical farm operator yourself?
Yeah, I think, our major challenge is actually, as John says, is the reducing the cost, right? And then also finding, right energy source, which is more sustainable. So those are the key component of operating smart farm in Korea. The vegetable price fluctuates a lot in Korea. So like, for example, like basil, it can go from 10,000 won to 100,000 won, depending on the season, right? And with our current cost structure, our smart farm vegetables are priced at as a premium, which is when we average the vegetables from traditional farming, and we average those fluctuations, and we are probably like 10% above the average, right? But if we can reduce that cost even by another 10%, that would be big growth in smart farm.
Wow. So let me get this right. Farm aid products are currently actually a premium product because that's a significant 10% premium to the consumers. But if you can eliminate that, then you're actually going to go mainstream.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay.
See, but we can do it either way, right? It's premium, but we are getting, one of the excitement happened this year is our B2B customers, like the big food processing companies, they are actually asking, the yearly supply of smart farm vegetables at higher price, than the vegetables they buy from traditional farming. That's because they started realizing, getting same quality of vegetables in same size at the same price throughout the year, they can actually save lots of efficiency in the production. Right. And then, also the vegetable from traditional farming, they tend to have we call the loss rate, because those, when they process vegetables, there are some portion they cannot use. But with smart farm vegetables, the usage rate is very high. Right. So all in all, even if they pay higher price, but they can actually save money at the end. So we are getting, those kinds of demands from our food customers. That's actually a big opportunity for us.
If I may ask, your B2B versus your B2C segments, what's the relative sizing? Is it half-half or 80-20?
I say maybe 60-40.
60-40, okay. 60-40 to 60 is
and B2C.
B2B. Okay.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. So a good 60% of the business is actually to customers who really value the reliability, the consistency, and they'll pay the premium willingly. And then if someone like an Unfold could come in and help you with the COGS part, the cost side, then that's just extra margin for the business.
Yep.
Wow. Okay. That is very cool. I want to switch gears here and just look forward a bit, because I think both of you guys have good perspectives on where the field is going. And so maybe a question to both of you, and we can start with John. You know, what's one positive trend you see in vertical farming? And then on the flip side, what's one obstacle that you're also like keeping an eye out for in this sector?
Yeah, I think one of the cool things that's happening, and this is actually it's been happening within the broader ag industry as well. But I think in vertical, it's really been on hyperdrive, if you will, and that is the confluence of technologies that are coming together. And what I mean by that is, you know, we've never had in the last 5-10 years now, just the amount of collaborations that are happening between companies like us who are focusing on the biology end of things, with the engineering people who are really putting together these farms, with the data, you know, all the incredible data and digital crop management that's happening now. I think for vertical, because of the, you know, what I talked about earlier, talking about this, you know, how we're controlling this environment through all these incredible engineering, it's an amazing time to be collaborating across what used to be pretty disparate industries, and then bringing it all together. And then, as Young's example gives you, it's all got to work on the farm. And then, so the ability for really some cool collaborative efforts happening from biology to engineering to data, and then the real life example of how does that work in a vertical farm. There's just a lot of great collaborations happening. And to me, that's where you make advances. When you bring really smart people from diverse disciplines, you get them to attack a problem, and you come up with some really incredible solutions. And to me, that's one of the most exciting parts that's happening in vertical. And it's happening in ag more broadly, but I think in vertical, because the way the pieces are coming together, it's really going in an incredible rate. Yeah. The second half of your question around the what obstacles or headwinds, I'm a big believer that in order for vertical to really capitalize on the incredible amount of capital that's generated, I mean, a couple $2 billion plus has been invested in vertical farms, right? Yeah. I think we've got to, as an industry, expand the crop portfolio. I mean, I just think, you know, right now it's a lot of leafy greens, a lot of microgreens, herbs, and all that. And it's a great place to start. If there's a place to start, absolutely. But I do think what some farms are starting to do, and we're going to try to do it Unfold, making that leap toward fruiting crops. And for us, that's tomato, pepper, cucumber. Other people are working on berries, et cetera. But when you get into those crops, we've all had these experiences where, and you know, Young touched on earlier, certain times of year things tasted great. And then other times, not so great. And I think especially when you think about berries and tomatoes and other things, we've all had that, oh man, it didn't taste like that 3 weeks. Right. And it's just because something happened in the environment. But because we're controlling that environment, boy, to give a consumer that experience and that sensory and flavor profile they're looking for every day of the year, that's a huge upside. Now, there's some real R&D that has to happen to get those kinds of crops amenable to a vertical farming situation. It's easier with the leafies just because of the plant architecture, et cetera. But I'm a big believer that when we make the leap to fruiting crops, that's going to open the door to a huge expansion of vertical farms, just because your crop portfolio is so much broader. And there's a reason why, Dana, you think about all the big high-tech glass houses, they're growing peppers, tomatoes, cucumbers, because there's a lot of value in that. And it's also differentiable at the consumer level because the sensory profiles are so important in those crops. So I do think that leap in berries is in the same position. That leap toward fruiting crops and broadening the crop portfolio that are grown indoors will really see the industry flourish.
Cool. So I'm hearing big exciting thing is just the cross-sector collaboration. People who don't usually get together are now getting together in vertical farming. And then kind of the headwind is like making sure we don't just do the leafy greens, but it really expands to all the other opportunities. Yong, what do you think? What's most exciting and what is most concerning?
100%. Yeah, I agree 100%. Like, you know, the technology advancement is one of the key things, right? You know, advancement in ICT technology, and then advancement in LEDs, and the equipment for the environment controls. All those technology innovation advance is actually helping us to create and operate indoor vertical farms at lower cost, and then also operate at the low expenses. So that's one big thing. And then I also agree with John in terms of expanding our portfolio into fruits type of vegetables, right? Fruits kind of product. And another thing is, like, for example, if you buy salad product, salad in retailers in Korea, the vegetables in the salad product changes throughout the season, because they are basically producing salad based on whatever the vegetable available at the time of the season.
Right, the season.
Having this indoor vertical farm, I can create the same salad vegetable mix throughout the year, so consumers can taste same salad throughout the year. It would be small change, you may think, but if you really look at vegetable salad product across all the countries, there are no branded salad product. The real reason is, if you want a brand product with one brand, then you want to provide consistent quality and taste.
Right.
But currently, with the traditional farming, it's almost impossible to do, unless you buy expensive vegetables in different season. But with this indoor vertical farm, as I mentioned to you, always in season, always in season, we can actually create more standardized product for consumers.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I tell you, Dean, one thing that it struck me as Young was talking, and then if you fast forward and you think about the impact that e-retail is having, and potential impact it has on how consumers buy their produce, you can imagine a day where it's not just Young being able to put together these great combinations, but the consumer then deciding, I want this combination, and then that bag shows up at your door, rather than going to the grocery store and seeing what's out there. No, I want to tell you what I want. And you can see that. And then you start building in nutritional composition, food sensitive, all these kinds of things. That's the world that we're building toward. And I think retail will be a huge enabler of that, because it's going to allow the consumer to say, here's what I want. And then because of great producers like Young, they actually put together, this is what that consumer wants. Let's get it to them. Right. And so this is a pretty exciting world ahead as all this stuff comes together.
Pretty exciting, really.
Yeah. Young, I just before I want to move to actually what John was mentioning, but I do want to kind of push you on this. Like, what are you worried about? What is on the horizon that is concerning to you?
Ooh. The pressure would be the energy side, right? The people may challenge, if we are one of the big expense in indoor vertical farm is the energy cost, because we use LED, and then people may challenge, the LED lighting versus the sunlight. Sunlight, is sustainable, but LED lighting, we are using, maybe the electricity produced from, using fuel or some, traditional kind of production. So one of the key is finding sustainable energy source for the indoor vertical farm is one of the challenges.
That's very timely, given that COP26 is going on, and this is very much a concern across the board. Okay, so energy sources and maintaining sustainability going forward. Okay.
I totally agree. Because you think, there's a great benefits to vertical, but you got to remember, open field farmers are using the greatest energy source in our solar system, right? And they're using the sun. And so there's totally real challenges around energy. Yeah.
Okay. John, what you were talking about reminds me of, especially in China, there are these, like they call them D2C, but now they're almost calling them like, factory to consumer, where platforms are aggregating consumer demand and then rapidly designing and then producing en masse that product. You're seeing it in, like, it's not even called fast fashion now, it's called ultra fast fashion. You're seeing it in other kinds of manufactured products. So I'm very curious, like, if you want to like really get out there with the technology and the future forecasting, predictive analytics in agriculture, could we one day have crowdsourced, you know, salads of different colors for our Insta feed? What are some wild ideas that you see on the horizon?
I think it's great. I think it's great, and it's so rare that anybody asks me any questions ever related to fashion. So I'm really thankful. I'm really thankful to that. But I think it is, and I think that this whole predictive nature, because it's driving everything. I think about breeding, where we used to, you know, date myself, but 20 years ago, you took pretty much everything into production to figure out, did it, you know, into a field or into some cycle to actually figure. Whereas now we could do so much in silica to say, here are probably the crosses we're going to make. Here is the, you know, here are the 10 that had the best chances. So it's very rapidly accelerating our ability to bring innovation to the marketplace, all the predictive approaches we're doing. But I do think it also, as you pointed out, on the marketing side and on how to respond to consumer trends. Now, the disadvantage we have from fashion is you still have the constraints of a biological system. I mean, it still takes X amount of time to get from seed to seed as you produce new varieties, et cetera. But I do think what we're doing as far as using predictive analytics to drive advances in breeding, to drive new varieties being introduced, it's, you know, we're shaving years off the normal development cycle for new varieties. But I do love, as I talked about earlier, I love this concept, though, of the more we can get to understanding exactly what the consumers are looking for, and then driving our R&D pipeline so that we're meeting that need as quickly as we can to when it actually appears in the marketplace. And I do think the good news is there's enough kind of commonalities in what we're seeing globally. Back to some of the trends we talked about earlier, the hyper local, reduced inputs, fresh, all those kinds of things that we know what some of those things are. But I think we're just going to have to stay on the pulse and understand where this is going. But then I think the biology is getting at a pace that's much, much faster than we were ever to do before. But as I say, it's hard because you still have the constraints of biological system. But I do think we have a great opportunity to fulfill what consumers are looking for, and doing it in a time that's meaningful for them, because they don't want to wait 10 years to figure out, oh, they finally give me what I wanted. So.
Well, I can, in terms of predictive analytics, I don't really need analytics. I kind of have a question, the final one here for Young, which is, we talked about lettuce, we talked about basil, but during pandemic, I heard about a lot of vertical farms sort of switching to making things for pharmaceuticals, for cosmetics. Question, Farm 8, why make lettuce when you can make, I don't know, something much higher value that's not even eaten anymore?
So during this pandemic, we actually benefited a lot, because the vegetable consumption and salad consumption in Korea significantly increased, right? Okay. So I'm not answering to your question, but we have great sales in terms of the traditional leafy product.
Okay.
Right. So, but on the other hand, we are currently working on pharmaceutical type of product. Okay. We are partnering with the Korean cosmetic companies and then functional food companies. Yeah. And then we are working on growing more high value added produces. So we are working on it.
If you fast forward 10 years, could it be that all vertical farms are doing pharma precursors and cosmetic?
No, I don't think so. I don't think so. And then probably John doesn't think so.
I hope not. People still got to eat, right?
Yeah. So there are the demand for the traditional vegetables for food, and then we can also have indoor vertical farms specialized for more functional vegetables for pharmaceutical and functional food.
Got it. So it's not either or, you can do both.
Yeah, we can do both.
So maybe, John, next time we talk, you'll be making seeds for some pharma or cosmetic product.
Who knows?
We'll see. We'll see. Okay. I'm getting the time warning over here. Before we wrap up, I just want to give same question to both of you. The audience here has a lot of folks who might potentially want to reach out and connect to collaborate. So I guess basically just how can people get in touch with you? Young?
Yeah, I think basically I can share my email address and even my phone number with you. So if somebody wants to contact me, then they can do it by email or phone. And I am actually looking for the partners in overseas because our farm aids plan is really moving into the overseas market.
Mm-hmm.
So we are actively looking for potential partners who can actually build a smart farm together and then produce vegetables and then distribute to consumers.
Okay, excellent. So you're not stopping at Antarctica, you're looking at other markets as well.
Yeah. We are actively looking in Middle East, Asia, all those markets.
Excellent.
Different
Okay,
markets, different needs for indoor vertical farm. Yeah.
got it. John, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm impressed. The only continent I haven't been on a farm in is Antarctica, so in Young beat me. So it's good. Yeah. So for us, we always hit our website, unfold.ag. For me, I'm a big LinkedIn person. So John Purcell, just look up John Purcell Unfold. Love to talk with folks, and Young, we should talk too. We definitely have some interest, levels of interest.
Yes.
So it was a great conversation. I really enjoyed being on the panel with you. And Daniel, thanks so much for moderating this so well.
Excellent. That's all we have time for today. So a big thank you to both John and Young for joining, as well as Foodland Ventures for making this possible. And with that, I will hand it back to the larger conference.
Thank you, John, Young, and Daniel for the session. As food security grows in importance, we're looking forward to seeing how vertical farming can improve the agri supply chain. Next, we have Julius and Steve for the mentoring Chinese session, with the topic of empowering FMB expansion with technology in Asia. Julius, formerly with McDonald's China, has been helping big brands transform digitally with in-store restaurant tech. Steve, the CEO of Kebab Cloud, a SaaS solution provider for retail at FMB, will share their insights in the Chinese market. Moderated by Louis Lin, the co-founder and enterprise relations of Foodland Ventures.
大家好，我是 Foodland Ventures 的共同创办人 Louis 林刚宇。今天非常的感谢各位一起共同参加亚太餐饮高峰会。2020年，全球餐饮科技的投资已经达到了230亿台币，科技驱动餐饮品牌成长已经是全球的趋势。而中国大陆作为一年拥有4.7兆人民币餐饮市场的地区，对于餐饮科技的导入、数位化的转型，也势必扮演举足轻重的地位。今天我们非常荣幸邀请到在中国大陆市场有丰富经验的2位与谈人。第一位是前麦当劳中国大陆的高级信息技术总监 Julius， 以及串零售云 Kebab 的 CEO Steve。那我们今天就先请 Julius 简单自我介绍一下。
好，谢谢主持人。大家好，我是 Julius， 很高兴有这个机会跟各位分享一些我的经验和看法。我是2009年加入麦当劳中国，之后就负责麦当劳的外卖送餐服务，就是我们叫麦乐送系统。从刚开始的电话订餐，到后来的网页订餐，发展到现在手机 APP 和小程序的订餐。麦当劳的后台麦乐送的系统，我们则从最早的这个物理机到虚拟化，以及一直发展到现在的公有云部署。经历了大概有4、5代的这个改变。那餐厅的门店端呢，则从传统的收银机点餐、现金支付，到后来的自助点餐机点餐和信用卡的免签名支付，一直到现在的手机支付。 我经历了大概这10几年中国大陆的这种数字化变化和这种互联网的快速发展。谢谢。
谢谢 Julius。那我们也请 Steve 简单的自我介绍一下。
谢谢各位好，我是 Steve。创任公司是我们从2016年开始发展的 SaaS 解决方案公司。我们针对于零售跟餐饮门店需要用到的解决方案，针对于门店的屏幕管理、远程的音乐管理以及培训管理，我们提供一系列的 APP， 满足门店的要求。目前我们从全世界的范围内有超过400多个连锁门店的品牌，超过3万的门店，以及接近10万的装置连接在我们平台上面。那我们从19年开始发展 AI 加 Retail 的战略，我们把更多的通过摄像头识别、通过大数据推荐的方案连接在我们的门店广告以及推广的管理工具上面。那我们最早服务的一个客户，举例来说，像阿里巴巴的盒马先生是一个在超市里面的连锁品牌的集合门店，它基本上拥有餐饮跟零售的属性，我们提供它数字标牌相关的解决方案。我们也更多的服务的客户包含了国际品牌麦当劳、Sephora， 也有更多的餐饮品牌，像是汉堡王、快乐柠檬，甚至像是宜家，都使用我们的解决方案管理门店的运营跟营销推广。创任公司目前现在有中国大陆、台湾、新加坡跟日本4个主要的营业据点。我们的公司的方案就是针对这个行业提供各种不同的 SaaS 解决方案，满足在设备管理以及门店运营管理的需求。谢谢。
今天非常开心邀请到2位哦，也可以看到2位在中国大陆的市场都是有十分丰富的这个多年经验。那其中 Julius 一直都是在品牌端的角色，而 Steve 的串 Kebab 是有丰富的服务各式通路的经验，所以想必可以给今天的观众很独到的市场观察以及趋势。那首先我想请问根据2位的观察，中国大陆的餐饮市场连锁化的成长其实应该是非常的快速，这样的速度是不是使餐饮的商家在进到规模化、标准化的这个发展阶段已经是到了这样子的程度吗？那2位认为说在餐饮科技扮演的角色是什么样的推动方式？我想先请教 Steve， 就您在中国大陆市场的连锁餐饮服务的客户经验，是不是有一些观察可以跟大家分享一下吗？
是的，创任公司基本上我们提供的是 SaaS 解决方案，对于所有的 IT 企业来说，针对于企业的服务，一定就是搜寻的就是行业以及门店或者是各种不同的解决方案的共性，所以连锁化率是对我们来说一个非常高的指标。那连锁化率代表着高度容易复制的解决方案，也就是不同在各个场景之间，甚至各种不同的行业之间，我都可以通过数字化或者 AI 的工具满足客户的需求。那连锁化率在我们刚开始经营在这个市场的时候，在中国大陆市场是相对低档，也就是说在整个中国大陆市场的门店里面，在2015年、2016年全餐饮零售的连锁化率大概在 5% 左右。那这个趋势在这几年间有越来越多的中式的品牌，或是可以说是新零售的品牌，甚至是大消费的品牌出现在市场里面。那在这2015到2020之间，确实有非常多的品牌有高度的连锁化，所以我们可以理解到，在今天可能有非常多的茶饮的品牌，可能它的连锁化率已经达到 30% 以上。那我们认为在各种不同的行业里面，连锁化率是推动 SaaS 我们一个比较好的一个利基，所以对消费者来说，它也可以受惠于这些连锁化的经营，所以不管是门店的前场、门店的后场，甚至门店的供应链，都可以取得一个更好的优势。那我们在解决方案里面，不仅提供的就是门店前场的运营，我们在中长期也希望可以去提供更多的前后场的运营。所以我们作为一个行业的比较小的 party 来说，可能更重视的是这个趋势，以及不管是在连锁、零售、外卖， 甚至是在电商，我们都需要提供更多的解决方案，满足线上到线下的要求。所以这个大概趋势是很明确的，连锁化率的堆升对于 SaaS 以及工具都会有一个比较高的趋势跟需求出现。
谢谢 Steve。但是如果讲到规模化、品牌化还有标准化，我相信麦当劳作为龙头的餐饮企业，一定是有非常强大的经验。所以我们也想请问一下 Julius， 这样的观察是不是也可以请您跟我们分享一下？
好的。去年就是2020年，其实中国大陆的餐饮市场的连锁化率是15%，相较于日本、美国等这些国家，其实中国大陆市场的这种餐饮连锁化率还是很低的。其中一个主要的原因，其实就是高度标准化的难度。一般我们说就是强供应、弱厨房的这种餐饮企业是比较容易标准化的，如西式快餐、咖啡、茶饮，以及像面包、糕点，还有中式的火锅等。那虽然中式餐饮，尤其是中式的正餐，是因为这种厨房的操作的难度呢，来增加了这个标准化的不容易性。那虽然我们说这个中餐不容易标准化，但是近年来呢，透过数字化的发展，基于大量消费者的数据的积累和分析，我们知道了消费者的偏爱、他的需求以及我们供给方的这种情况，所以我们在不同的城市、我们的不同的商圈，我们可以用来把这些数据分析后，我们能用来做这种，比方开店选址，或者我们来决定店型啊、业态，甚至这些餐饮的品类等等。所以在资本的关注下，以及餐饮科技的这种赋能下，连锁化的发展会更容易一些。那另外一方面，各地的这种地方的政府也出台了大量的这种政策来支持连锁化的经营，更加强这种食品安全的监管。我们再说到这种中国的零售电商平台，因为零售的电商平台早已经具备了消费者线上的消费的画像，那再加上这几年丰富的这种线下数据的积累，我们从过去的千人千面，也就是根据不同的消费者，我们来提供个性化的产品和这种促销的推荐。那现在的这种餐饮行业呢，甚至可以做到千店千面，就是它利用门店的销售数据，加上这种人像的识别，来对非会员的画像。那我们用这个分析以后，我们用来决定这种，比方说像门店的陈列，商品的这种销售的预估和我们促销的这种活动等等。这大概是我从过去这几年看到的一些可能我们所谓标准化或者说连锁化的一些现象。谢谢主持人。
好，谢谢。我们其实在看全球现在有蛮多的餐饮品牌在发展上慢慢都是希望给消费者有一点连锁不复制的这种消费的体验。但是在这种趋势的背后其实需要的都是一样，透过导入更全面的餐饮科技来让企业更了解他们的顾客样貌。那跟 Steve 再请教看看，串作为在不同的市场协助连锁餐饮品牌数位转型的第一线，那在中国大陆的餐饮市场经验上，这些餐饮品牌在做数位化转型或者是导入餐饮科技，有没有一些比较特别的趋势的观察，或是背后有没有什么样的优势还是挑战可以跟大家分享一下吗？
是的，简单介绍一下川润公司，基本上我们针对门店的体验提供解决方案，针对于门店的屏幕、音乐广播跟人员培训，我们认为这是一个3个主要的接触点。那对于所有的门店、所有的线下服务来说，接触点的营销都是最重要的。所以如何能够做到连锁不复制，接触点的营销是站在第一线，我如何能够呈现，能够让消费者今天到一个新的店，今天到一个新的场域的时候，他知 立即知道有这样的新的服务、新的产品，那更多的也仰赖于整体的门店的运营，包含了商品，包含了供应链，能够让每一个门店都有更好的体验。那提到了在这个市场，在中国大陆市场里面，基于这个营销以及市场的推广，大概有几个方向。在过去，在回到16、17、18的时候，在整个新零售的趋势正盛的时候，大家强调的是如何把更多的线下业务搬到线上。那实际上，我们在发现这2年在趋势上面也有更多的挑战，来自于说如何把线上跟线下运营的更好。所以我们更多谈到的是全渠道，谈到的是这个如何去协助客户在做运营，在做营销。所以我们针对于 SaaS 公司来说，从原本的单纯提供工具，在这2年可能会遇到的挑战会是更多的要提供更多的服务。那在我们发现在中国大陆市场里面也有一个比较有趣的趋势，虽然目前现在的客单价还比较低，总体来说以这个 SaaS 工具来说，平均而言每一个商户又愿意为了这个 SaaS 付费，以一个简单的数据作为评估，以美团点评这样子的门店，它的 SaaS 工具提供给到中国大陆非常多的门店，它平均的 ASP 年化大概也在400块到600块之间。所以我想在这个金额，其实在行业里面虽然并不是特别高，但是在所谓的门店付费去做解决方案，让门店的数字化做得更好，其实在这样子的一个趋势上面，已经可以看到在付费条件上面已经有了更好的趋势。所以我们认为，不管是甲方需要的各种方案，或者是乙方提供的各种工具，其实都是需要针对于趋势以及行业的需求。那刚刚提到的最后一个我们要谈到的是说，可能会有更多的需要来自于整个餐饮零售全链路的 SaaS 工具的挑战。所以我们在提供方案，可能针对的不管是市场部门、产品部或者是运营部门，我们都要能够提供给他们更好的工具以及服务。那这个大概就是我们针对于这几年整个在趋势上面所观察到的重点。所以更多的 IT 服务的外部化可能会是一个很大的重心，那这个是我们目前简单的观察。
非常感谢 Steve 的分享。我想就像麦当劳这样具有领导地位的餐饮龙头，在刚开始导入餐饮科技的时候，也还是需要跟外部一些平台寻求一些资源。那这方面我就也想再跟 Julius 请教一下，以市场面而言，这几年来成长的这么快速，消费者的组成跟结构应该也是有蛮大的一些不同的变化。那这个部分对于标准化和连锁化来说，又会有什么样的影响吗
？OK， 谢谢主持人。因为我们讲到这个民以食为天啦，因为说到吃，其实这是我们中国人的强项。因为去年2020年虽然受到疫情的影响，但是整个中国大陆的这种餐饮市场还是达到了接近4万亿人民币的这种规模。那所以生活方式的改变和消费升级，因为过去我们从餐饮可能从吃饱到现在注重这种消费的体验和餐饮的丰富性以及食材的这种健康和这种食材来源的这种溯源。所以我觉得从这种消费者的这个年龄结构来看呢，Z 世代的这种就是95后的这个消费者，我们根据报告，这个 Z 世代的95后的消费者，其实从这个年龄结构来讲，它已经占到了接近40%。如果我们再加上90后，这个数字更达到了66%。所以90后的消费者，尤其是95后的消费者，相较于我们80、70后的消费者，他比方说对中餐的偏好呢，就更注重这种餐饮的体验的丰富性。他可能会选择比方说像流行的地方美食啊，或者说网红的这种爆品，甚至他就是为了去餐厅打卡拍照片，然后去餐厅消费。那他们会根据 甚至会根据这种不同的这种外出的场景，因为有些有社交属性，他们需要，比方说去外出就餐的时候，他们甚至根据不同的这种就餐的场景，可能他们选择不同的餐厅。这和我们过去传统的这种餐饮消费者，其实在行为上有很有所不同。其实这也比较容易理解，因为我们讲95后呢，是根据这个，其实95后就是跟着这个互联网成长的这一代，所以他们更容易接受这种数字化的信息的传递，以及这种数字化的这种消费方式。除了95后、90后以外，其实像我们新的这种中产的家庭，他们的生活方式改变了，外食的增加，就像我刚刚提到的，他们对于餐饮的健康啊、食材的讲究啊，甚至用餐的便利性，这种不一样的需求，也带动了像我们有所谓的生鲜外卖、餐饮的成品啊或者半成品这些行业。那另外我们还有一个族群，就是我们讲的退休的银发族，因为根据调查，这个族群在线下的体验式消费中，他到餐厅用餐的这个频次是最高的。所以随着我们老龄化的这种现象呢，我们如何提供老年人这种餐饮的服务，也是最近包含这个企业啊、这种资本啊，甚至这种政府关注的这个热点之一。所以这就是我的一些理解跟大概的观察，谢谢。
那我这边还是想再继续跟 Julius 请问一下刚我们有提到说，不管是90后啊、95后啊，甚至于是几乎各个世代我觉得他们在现在外食消费的频率都增加，其实都非常的多。那但是我们在这一次的这个疫情对餐饮业的影响，对于数位化的转型跟导入餐饮科技，是不是有比较明显的加速？那接下来我们在疫情也慢慢开始稳定缓解之后，原本在疫情养成的这些消费习惯是会继续延续吗
OK， 好，因为其实早在这个疫情之前呢，中国大陆这边的这个餐饮企业，它的数字化和这种数字化的消费习惯其实已经养成了，尤其是这种餐饮外卖的这个市场，尤其是疫情之后，这边限制的这种堂食内用的这种场景，所以对如中式正餐这种企业，其实打击就非常的大。所以后疫情时代，其实这个餐饮零售化的趋势加强，这是我们观察到的。因为餐饮企业它需要去寻求除了店铺外的这种收入的多元化，他们需要从线上到线下去导流，也就是我们讲的 O2O、online 到 offline。那我们从这种公寓的这种平台的导入流量，同时也经营着这种私域的流量，来增加我们会员的这种复购。所以除了这种传统餐饮的服务之外呢，我们这些餐饮企业也尝试着其他如这种食品的半成品啊、成品啊，以及餐饮周边如这种餐具啊、杯子等的这种销售，来增加我们所谓的收入多元化。那像中式正餐这种业态，他们也开始在贩售像这种套餐啊或者半成品，来增加这种外卖的机会。因为我们现在的这种餐饮门店基本上都用这种扫码点餐，这样不仅可以减少店员点餐的时间，增加这种营运的效率，同时我们在这种菜单这种管理中，比方说像菜品啊、价格啊、这个是否售罄等这种管理也变得更容易了。甚至像某品牌的这种连锁咖啡企业，他们只能透过企业的 APP 或者小程序点餐，门店端并没有这种收银的点餐系统。所以我们看到这种疫情之后呢，尤其是像无接触式的外卖，因为消费者现在可以透过比方说大的这种第三方的外卖平台，或者一些企业自己的 APP 或者企业的小程序来下单，然后消费者可以在比方说门店取餐，或者他在比方说他的家里或者说办公室里面来取餐。那像有些不让外卖骑手进入的，像这种居民小区啊，或者说像这种写字楼啊、办公楼啊，或者说像大学的校园，其实他们就用这种取餐柜来取代这种传统的 外卖骑手来送餐。因为这种取餐位的设立呢，不但可以减少人的接触，因为我们讲说这种无接触式的外卖，所以这不但减少了人的接触，我们也可以提高这种骑手的送餐效率。那同时也大大降低这种外卖餐点常常会这种拿错啊或者遗失的状态，遗失这种情况。所以是的，我觉得我们看到的是，就是持续的这种科技的投入呢，可以来满足消费者这个持续不断的这种需求。所以这是我们观察到的。谢谢。
谢谢 Julius 的分享。其实就我们在亚洲其他国家的一些观察上，我们觉得疫情影响的状况就是在这段期间，其实也成为餐饮业者最愿意导入餐饮科技的一段时间。像他们原本预算大部分都是去开设新的实体店铺，但是在疫情影响下很难去继续开分店的状况，导入餐饮科技反而是更有把握的一个投资。所以在这方面，我想再跟 Steve 请教看看，中国大陆的餐饮业的数位化转型跟导入餐饮科技的过程中，消费者对于餐饮科技的导入在教育上或者是沟通上，是不是还会有很大的成本或是比较不容易的地方吗？
普遍来说，我们公司在经营的市场里面，从大陆市场、台湾市场、跟日本市场以及新加坡、东南亚市场来说，我们目前发现，其实以这个大陆市场以及东南亚市场，应该算是趋势以及导入新的科技的这个接受度其实是最高的。那我们大概可以从几件事情来观察到这个趋势。第一个是针对于这些连锁餐饮以及零售的客户来说，他们对于市场的变动是非常快的。举例来说，像台湾跟日本的市场以及新加坡的市场都相对的成熟，但是大陆以及东南亚市场，它的新的品牌、新的消费习惯、新的流行的趋势以及新的这个管理模式，不管是从数字化或者从媒体的推动，其实这个趋势都是很明确的，可以看得到的。那在几个比较特别的这个 IT 的这个 category 里面，有一些是我们目前大陆走的比较领先的，在其他的市场还没有的。举例来说，大陆有非常成熟的外卖市场，所以在外卖平台全渠道运营上面，这样子的一个工具跟这样子的系统，其实是领先于各个市场，以及现在在这个技术以及产品上面已经广泛受到大部分的这个用户所接受。那另外一部分可以理解到，最近也就是这1-2年来广泛大家提到的这个私域流量，在私域流量运营上面也有大量的工具、大量的解决方案被提出来。所以我们认为，以大陆市场来说，从过去的这个一个新的科技来使用，一个新的 IT 技术来使用，它可能是我们谈到的是推跟拉，就是说从市场上有很多的供应方提供这样子的工具，那大部分的品牌被动的去接受。那现在其实越来越多的品牌，它也会去寻求更多的解决方案来优化它每天运营的环境。过去我们可能认为说，经营一个连锁的门店，可能我需要很强的供应链、很强的 IT 部门、很强的这个运营部门。但时至今日来说，其实在中国大陆市场有很多的基础建设，它被各种不同的 IT 技术给颠覆了，包含像供应链有非常非常多的供应链侧的解决方案，提供不同的采购跟这些解决跟这些商品的供应。那另外一个部分也有在这个外卖以及电商线上的营销上面出现了非常非常多的工具，可以去让客户通过一个平台同时的批量去修改各个不同的商品管理，其实都是我们可以看到的蛮大的一个趋势。所以从过去来说可能会是一个推势跟拉势，但是现在我们可以说，在整体的市场的趋势里面，可以看到越来越多的新的创新出现在这个行业里面。刚刚包含提到的 不管是我们通过私域流量的运营提供更多工具，或者是在外卖的全渠道提供更多的工具，这些都是新的趋势。那突破了这个 IT 的领域来说，就有更多不同的场景。那当然包含像植物肉啊，或者像是这个环保的吸管的使用已经越来越多。那这边还有一些比较有趣的现象，一个是极化的现象，在大陆市场非常多的、越来越多的这个高端餐饮。那这些高端餐饮的复苏，我们也观察到了有非常非常多新的餐饮的模式。那以上海这个市场来说，有非常非常多的异国料理，有非常非常多的各种不同的餐饮都在上海聚集，有非常非常多的这个门类都可以选择。在这一些新的高端餐饮的趋势之下，我们如何提供一些新的解决方案给到这些高端餐饮，让它去做经营？那例如说，另外一个极化现象是有越来越多的快餐，越来越多的这个轻餐，从轻餐饮演变成的这个FMCG 的商品。也就是说，我们过去知道，像我们的其中一的客户，像喜茶，它原本只有门店的这个手摇茶饮，但现在它其实也有一些商品已经出现在全家便利店。所以我们可以知道，在这个趋势里面，过去我们在谈这个 food service， 我们只是在谈在门店端的商品。那未来可能有一个趋势是，可能门店有越来越多的品牌会在零售里面享有一席之地。那这个趋势其实是非常明显的。例如说像这个肯德基推出它的K 咖啡的快充，所以这些新的商品的趋势都也在让我们可以创造新的工具去满足这个行业的需求。我想这个是一个至少在中国大陆市场是一个变化非常快速而且持续创新的行业。所以我想不管是体验上面的这个需求，以及像我们服务的 Top Golf， 我们提供给他更好的全渠道的预约跟排队，那不需要去仰赖绑定在特定平台上面的工具，它可以自行通过小程序公众号来预约。这一些都是我们提供给到中高端餐饮的一些工具。那基于快餐，基于各种不同的零售门店，我们提供给他更多的消费者营销推广的解决方案跟工具，能让消费者在门店中感受到新的商品，有新的促销、新的广播、新的内容、新的这个广告出现，这个是我们比较看重的一个重点。所以我想极化现象的严重使得我们发现这个高端餐饮以及这个快餐的行业里面里面有大量的趋势是可以观察。那我相信这里面就是一个更多的机会，对我们这样子的一个 SaaS 行业者来说。谢谢。
谢谢 Steve。其实我们在看，因为这个疫情的影响下，消费者对于很多餐饮品牌导入的新科技啊、消费方式啊，接受度其实说真的也越来越高。像我们最近也看到很多不同的地区，甚至不一样的国家，也都陆陆续续导入一些像送餐机器人这样的一个新科技。一方面解决这种餐饮业人事流动率越来越高，薪资也逐年调涨的问题。同时也让顾客需要这种即时服务的这个需求可以被满足。那最后我想再跟两位请教一下，就是首先我想跟 Julius 再分享一下，餐饮品牌业者的角度来说，进入中国大陆市场，在导入餐饮科技的这个准备，有没有什么样的一些观察或是经验可以跟大家一起分享吗？
好的。因为我们知道这种科技真的是日新月异啊。那中国大陆呢，它在这种技术的应用上，我觉得是所谓的跳跃式的。就例如我们在传统的零售和这种餐饮的企业，其实最早是从现金支付，它一下子就跳过了这种信用卡支付，到了手机的移动支付。那尤其是像我们讲消费者端的这种接触点，像我们几年前刚出现在门店的自助点餐机，如今有很大一部分已经被我们各平台的这种小程序所取代，所以它的这个在技术的应用上，我们讲是这种跳跃式的，它不用一代一代的演进，它可以跳跃的方式，中间有几代我们直接跳过，用最新的 最好的这种方式，让消费者来接受。所以我觉得餐饮企业对这种信息技术的相关投入呢，就要非常谨慎。我们在选择新的这种技术的时候呢，我们要选择这种进入门槛比较低的，我可以很容易大规模部署的，能快速上线的，并且我们可以根据不同的需求，我们可以快速迭代，来满足包含企业端或者消费者端的这种需求。所以我们在这种 IT 应用系统的搭建上呢，我们首先要符合这种企业的战略。像我知道有些餐饮企业，其实它是想要打造成这种科技公司，所以他们自行选择这种搭建这种 IT 系统。但对于一般的这种餐饮企业，尤其是这种门店数比较少，或者才刚开始开店这种餐饮企业呢，其实我会更建议选择市面上已经成熟的这种 SaaS 这种就是软件及服务这种供应商，像 Kebab 这种服务的供应商，因为它除了可以满足我刚刚提到这几点的这种需求以外呢，对于这种有特殊需求的大型连锁企业，其实它也可以满足，比方说做到这种私有化的部署，那也可以根据这种企业不同的需求做一些定制的开发，那同时它可以按需的付费，所以这免除了我们要自行搭建系统，它需要的时间其实比较长，它投入很大，它这个系统的这种可用性啊，或者说可扩展性都会有所限制。所以这是大概我觉得我可以对这种餐饮企业，如果他想要选择这种新的技术的时候所做的一些建议吧。那最后呢，我觉得也是最重要的，因为我们这边17年刚通过的这种网络安全法，以及9月份刚施行的这种数据安全法，然后到11月刚出台刚施行的这种个人信息保护法，其实这些都是企业需要非常重视的，因为我们所谓的应用系统呢，一定要满足这种等级保护的要求。那对于数据啊、系统啊，对于消费者的这种隐私的保护呢，我们在自己建立系统 IT 系统的时候，或者甚至在选择供应商的时候，我们要注意到就是一定要合法合规，那避免这种因为比方说系统安全啊，或者说信息泄露这种问题导致的这种伤害以及商誉的损失。所以这大概是我可以给到的一些建议。谢谢。
好，谢谢 Julius。那同样的问题哦，就也想跟Steve 请教一下。就说以 SaaS 业者这个角度，在中国大陆的餐饮市场，对导入餐饮科技的观察，有没有什么样的心得可以跟大家分享一下？
是的，谢谢。基本上我们发现，其实在中国大陆市场，在整个 SaaS 行业里面，其实我们也可以说已经到达了下半场，一整个超过发展20年的这种企业服务或者是平台级的解决方案。那其实在我们当初刚开始做系统的时候，其实最主要我们都是思考以企业软件的方式提供不同的公司，那现在可能更多的是用订阅的方式给到企业。那对于企业来说，其实满足它各1到100，那在中国大陆非常非常多的企业，可能到这个成千上万的门店，那这些门店的数量其实都是非常大的一个量级，相比于这个全世界的这个区域来说，有一个非常大的不同。那比较有趣的地方，我们可以知道，像是在中国的 SaaS 的定价，其实相对于各个行业类别来说，相对于这个欧美已经上市的企业都是相对低的。举例来说，以像现在北美上市的这个 Toast 这一个 POS 收银软件，它的平均的这个 ASP 平均年约订单价大概可能落在一个 POS 机70块到200块美金。那我们可以发现，在中国市场，你可能可以发现，在同样的价格，可能它是每年70块到200块美金的价格提供给消费者，提供给市场上的这一些门店以及连锁品牌。那我们可以看到一个事情，就是说，在中国现在的平均的软件售价里面，其实有一个相对低的趋势。那我想，第一个这个可能是这个还在一个竞争的一个态势，另外一个是 在过去 to C 的行业里面有一个大量补贴，以一个竞争上面的一个优惠可以获取用户的一个趋势，所以我们也发现在这个价格里面比较低，不过它的功能、它的完整度以及它可以满足的场景，其实相比于非常非常多的欧美市场里面可以看到的一些软件来说，其实完整的非常多。一套 POS 软件，它不仅自带了这个收银功能，它可能也带了会员，也带了全渠道，它可能也带了小程序。所以在这一些方案里面，我觉得是非常有竞争优势的。那未来我相信在接下来的几年间，这些工具可能会外溢到亚洲各个市场里面去，不管你看到像日本市场，或者像是东南亚、新加坡市场，那我们都可以知道有一个更高的机会，跟更多的这个出海的潜在的可能性。所以我想，我们创业公司在经营中国大陆市场，我们把自己当作是一个这个锻炼我们自己的产品的角度，我们去满足各种各样的需求。也就是举例来说，如果说要满足一个成千上万门店的需求，那可能在全亚洲除了中国大陆市场，可能你找不到一个市场可以让你锻炼你的产品，可以满足这个上千上万的门店。那我们发现在这个趋势上面，我们自己在这里面看到几个这个比较特别的重点，也可以回应到主持人刚刚说到的，如果一个新的 SaaS 公司或者新的软件公司，它想要在中国市场经营，那我们会怎么做建议？那我们可以知道是目前现在中国市场里面的中国大陆 SaaS 市场里面的这些 SaaS 公司，它其实都已经在一些这个关键的赛道里面布局一个非常大的一个关键的解决方案。所以如果说要通过解决方案的选择来说，我们会建议说可能是一些特殊性的，可能是一些比较特别的解决方案，可以满足客户的需求。那刚刚我提到像麦当劳或者像百胜这个肯德基，他们在中国大陆也都会去布局更多的自己自行核心软件开发的需求。举例来说，他们可能在各个不同的2线城市已经建立了非常大的核心软件的开发团队。所以我们以创业公司在经营业务的时候，我们就思考到，如果我发展我的产品，终究没办法让一个拥有上千、1000家、3000家、5000家的门店使用我的解决方案，然后一次性的可以使用3-5年以上，这样的情况其实是比较可惜的。所以以我们自己的定位来说，我们希望作为一个市场后进者，我们提供了围绕的交易会员支付之外的解决方案，提供一些工具满足市场的需求。那刚刚我也提到，我们在这一些这个交易会员支付的这个几个面向我们没有去做，所以我们目前现在也没有直接碰到消费者安全保护的问题。那我们在我们的平台上也去上了等保，刚刚其实看到 Julius 提到的等级保护，甚至像 ISO 或者像是这个一些安全性的认证，其实我们也拥有了更多的这个认证。所以其实基本上我认为这个行业其实是越来越成熟。那在下半场的竞争，我想创新以及观察是一个非常重要的。所以在亚洲市场可能就要更多的去观察这个趋势的改变，像我刚刚提到的，以后也许在 Food Service 跟 FMCG 可能会是中间的这个差异会越来越少。为什么？因为趋势上可以看到越来越多的 FMCG 品牌越来越多的这个 Food Service 品牌推出自己的消费品，越来越多的消费品品牌推出自己的 Food Service 门店。所以我们认为这个是一个其中一个可以观察的一个趋势。另外一个是我们也在发现到有越来越多出海的机会，不管是北美市场、欧洲市场或者是日本市场，这些这个软件跟解决方案相比于我们在大陆原生发展的这些工具来说，都有一些优势，从功能上，从价格上，从这个满足各个市场经营的要求的体量上面，我们都有一些机会。所以我想整个来说应该是 这么建议去在新的餐饮以及新的零售经营上面，可能会是我们的工具上面的建议，大概是这样子。
谢谢 Steve。我想中国大陆的餐饮市场在导入餐饮科技数位化转型，一直都是走在全球蛮前面的一个地方。我也相信这中间的经验可以让非常多的新兴市场新加入的业者来参考和借鉴。那今天刚好也有餐饮品牌端的代表跟餐饮科技平台端的代表，非常丰富经验的分享。那今天就非常谢谢 Julius 跟 Steve。接下来我们还有下一个精彩的对谈，也请各位观众持续关注 Foodland Ventures。谢谢。
Thank you, Julius, Steve, and Luis for the session. We really see great opportunities for startups in Asia as they try to tackle the broader markets. Next, we have our last panel today, how cloud kitchens are reshaping the future of restaurants. We have Jason from Just Kitchen, Mario from Yummy Corp, Jonathan from Pot Meals, and Kelvin from Deli Bags, sharing experience funding and growing their cloud kitchens in Taiwan, Indonesia, Malaysia, and more. Moderating the session is Victor J. Chow from 3 Square.
Hi, everybody. We're very lucky today to have a panel of experts on cloud kitchens. And the topic, of course, is how cloud kitchens are reshaping the future of restaurants. My name is Victor J. Chow. I am the founder and CEO of 3 Square. We also have a cloud kitchen type concept and internet restaurant group. But we're here to share with this great experienced group of people about different cloud kitchens and how they perform. Real quickly, we have Mario Suntanu, who is the co-founder and CEO of Yummy Corp. It's one of the fastest growing cloud kitchens in Southeast Asia. Yummy Corp operates more than 70 cloud kitchen locations across Indonesia. Next, we have Jonathan Vines, who is the founder and CEO of Pot Meals, formerly Damakan, and is a top player in the Malaysian market. After that, I'd love to introduce Kelvin Subowo, who is also from Indonesia and is the co-founder and CEO of Daily Box. Founded in 2018, Daily Box is an emerging star, also in Indonesia, as I mentioned, and they have a very unique strategy that I'd love to talk about more later on. They're growing rapidly, and now they have more than 120 locations across Indonesia. Finally, my fellow countryman, Jason Chen, who is the founder and CEO of Just Kitchen, and also operating, like I said, out of Taiwan, like myself. Just Kitchen is the first cloud kitchen in APAC to become publicly traded, which is very impressive. And this obviously sparks a lot of questions and thoughts from people in Taiwan and internationally. And we'll definitely look into their unique business model with Jason today as well. So let's have a big round of applause for all of our speakers today. So, I mean, first and foremost, let's get right into it, right? So in cloud kitchens, there's a lot of different business models, as we all just discussed. And even in one market, you can see a lot of different models being implemented. So can you guys share more about your company and your business model? What makes your cloud kitchen unique? And how does this model provide competitive advantages in the market you're present in? So let's start with Mario.
Hey, Victor. Thanks for the time, and thanks, Foodland, for arranging all this. It's great to speak with some of the names that I've read through in articles and have never had a chance to meet. So happy to trade ideas and share thoughts, and hopefully something great comes out of this. So just a quick introduction of what Yummy Corp does. So Yummy Corp operates as a set of Yummy kitchens. Today we're a little bit over 80 kitchens, but we take a different approach in the sense that in the sense that instead of operating, so the two common or the two main business models in the cloud kitchen space, where the players are all here, right? I would say are people that are operating the facilities and infrastructure and technology behind the infrastructure, and then businesses that are operating the brands, right? Where the value building comes in the brands, right? We have, Kelvin as essentially the one that is leading that strategy here in Indonesia. Yummy Corp takes a different approach where we work with existing brands. So Yummy Kitchens, Yummy Corp doesn't own a single brand, right? And then the way we do is we work with people like Kelvin and other brands in the market that want to scale fast using online delivery channels, right? And we provide the facilities, but also the people management and the operation management required to scale fast, right? So the idea is that you can grow really fast without having to build your own kitchens, without having to build your own technology, without having to hire your own people. We become your partner in reaching that 80 plus, 100 plus locations as you see fit, right? And in terms of our strategy, we assign the people, we train the people for specific brands, but we actually we train them multiple brands so that during the peak hours and the slow hours, the people are working on different brands.
Wow, Mario, thank you so much for sharing. That sounds excellent. Sign me up. I'm working with you when I go to Indonesia. You convinced me. Yes. Jonathan, how about you? Please share more about your company and business model.
Yeah, so I think it's super interesting to hear from Mario. Thanks for sharing that. So for us, quite a different approach. So I guess our mission is really to bring the most exciting food into every neighborhood. And so we operate one main brand called Pot Meals, and then we also have a couple of kind of virtual brands. But kind of the distribution model is quite different. So we actually we operate what we call smart outlets. So smart outlets are essentially a hybrid between a cloud kitchen that serves purely for delivery, right, on marketplaces, as well as also our own delivery, but also allows customers to actually buy food for takeaway and dine-in, and this is all done through the Pot Meals app. So we have one app where you can, as a customer, you can order for delivery, you can order for dine-in and takeaway. And this is really central for us to get a lot of feedback data that we use then to optimize the menu, right? The food offering in every smart outlet that we have should be then hyper-locally customized for the local preferences. And currently we have 12 of these smart outlets operating and opening roughly now every week, every 1.5 weeks, another smart outlet.
Oh, thank you for sharing, Jonathan. Whenever I go to Malaysia, I always stop by one of your outlets because it used to be close to some of where my company is or my previous companies are. And I'm always very impressed with the different techs, advantages and new services and new products that you add in there. So it's very interesting to me. Congrats and thank you for sharing. Next, Kelvin, can you please share more about your company, more about your business model?
Hi, everyone. Thank you, Victor, for inviting me. Such an honor to meet all of my friend, and hopefully we can collaborate more in the near future, especially when this industry is very, very hot right now, right? I think we are blessed. We are tapping in this industry with a great momentum, a great trust from all of the markets, and well, it's collaboration time. So it's great to know all of you. So basically, to put it simple, Daily Box as a group is an online restaurant. We are focusing on distributing our products through online channels, through online delivery platform, through e-commerce. So basically, where conventional restaurants usually have to have a big kitchen, strategic locations, we focus strongly on innovations of our products, utilizing the growth of online food delivery, e-commerce. So in terms of the operations, we are more efficient. We definitely our growth also supported by Yummy Corp. Like I said in the early of the conversation, we are blessed to know Mario and Yummy at the early days. even before the pandemic. So yeah, we are both working together very close to grow in the sector. So our brand consists of Daily Box. It's a rice box. It's a rice box brand, and we have also Daily Meals. It's a frozen packed products selling through e-commerce. And we also have Shirato. Shirato is sushi to go. So if like Yami focus on the facility infrastructure and the tech, we are focused on developing the brand, focus on innovating new menu, new products, and focusing on brands like Daily Box, Daily Meals, and Shirato, and expand majorly through the Cloud Kitchen. Right now we are self-operated, except with Yami, obviously. So we have operated now in 120 locations across 10 cities in Indonesia. So the numbers keep growing. Hopefully we can hit around 150 by the end of this year.
Oh, wow, that's amazing, Kelvin. Thank you so much for sharing. I love that story of working together with others, since this is such a great ecosystem and it's a really hot topic right now. Finally, last but not least, Jason, can you please share more about Just Kitchen and what Just Kitchen does?
Sure. Thank you, Victor, for the introduction. So we're, I always draw the analogy to e-commerce, right? So there's infrastructure, which is the internet, and then there's the delivery partners, and then there's the brands. So what we do is the only vertical that we're not in is delivery. So we own and operate our own kitchens. So we're not a cast, we don't share kitchens. So we build the infrastructure and we build the distribution network. So right now we're operating in Taiwan and in Hong Kong and looking to expand throughout Asia. So these kitchens are again self-operated, and it's about getting distribution and getting proximity to our consumers. And then in terms of the brands, we both operate our own developed virtual brands, our proprietary virtual brands. So we have 16 brands that we develop in-house. So we have a strong culinary team that do that. At the same time, we also have 10 brands that we partner with. Some of the partnerships are with local heroes that are enterprise in Taiwan that have multiple locations, but they're looking to widen the distribution network or to go abroad. At the same time, we have international brands which we work with that we bring in from overseas into Taiwan and into Hong Kong, and then eventually onto other regions. And these are brands that are internationally known through enterprise, like TGI Fridays, Smith & Wollensky, like Paul Bistro. So we do kind of both on the brand content side. We develop and we also partner, with the goal of basically being able to distribute as many brands and as many cuisine types to as much of the audience as possible.
Awesome, Jason. Thank you so much for sharing. As someone in the space who's in the same market as you, it's very inspiring to see how you guys grow and just how quickly you do so. Thanks again for sharing. On to our second question. I think a lot of people always comment about this, but I mean, we have a very unique insight to how the pandemic has impacted our businesses. So, conventional restaurants really have seen such a massive hit in their business during COVID-19. On the other hand, delivery services and cloud kitchens, on the most part, have seen a big boom. So as we look ahead to this new normal in the F&B business and food tech, what drivers do you see in the future growth of cloud kitchens and virtual brands? Especially, let's focus on Asia, APAC, Southeast Asia first. Mario, can I trouble you to kick off this question, please?
So, thanks, Victor. So let me just put a little bit of context where I think during the pandemic, conventional restaurant businesses saw a massive hit. I would say that in Indonesia, it's a little bit of a mixed effect on the cloud kitchen side, right? I think it gave opportunities for a lot of cloud kitchen to shine, But on the other hand, I would argue that the whole delivery ecosystem would have grown faster without the pandemic, as opposed to with during the pandemic, right? I think a big part of it is the general behavior that we saw was that, you know, people with the pandemic, I think the dine-in restaurant did take a massive hit, and that essentially was eliminated for a few months, right? But most of the migration of that activities, instead of going to delivery, which was already prospering and growing fast regardless of the pandemic, most of them actually went to people eating at home. Which was traditionally the behavior that wasn't really there, was actually declining overall, essentially got resurrected through the pandemic, right? So post-pandemic, I would actually see that the delivery market in Indonesia would grow much faster, where the residential behavior of people already used to ordering from the cloud kitchens will be still there. But the bigger use case in big cities in Indonesia is actually ordering food from at work, where you don't have the facilities, you don't have the access, you want the variety, you are eating together as a group in which you usually consume a bit more, right? So we are, you know, we're hoping to see actually faster growth, even faster growth post-pandemic for the cloud kitchen and delivery space.
Very interesting take on things. I'm sure a lot of people who are not in the industry think a little bit differently, but you know, I would say personally, I do agree with you also. Jonathan, how about you? What are your thoughts on this new normal and how cloud kitchens will move forward, and what are those drivers?
I think Mario, thanks for sharing that. Super interesting. I didn't know that about this about Indonesia. So I think and I think in Malaysia it's slightly different. I think what we have seen, that a lot of dine-in moved into also takeaway, and of course delivery massively benefited in a sense from the various lockdowns that we had in Malaysia. I think in a post-pandemic world that we are in Malaysia already entering, and I think across Southeast Asia also moving to, it's what we believe in is really it's going to be heavily omni-channel, right? And it's kind of also how we build our business to be ready for that or benefit from that, so that customers are now much more used to all sorts of different ways to order, right? Being it not just either dine-in or then delivery, but takeaway, and also especially using mobile phones much more in kind of the offline dining context, which previously wasn't the case. But obviously during the pandemic, everybody started to use like QR codes. You have to check in when you want to go into a restaurant, etc. So I think that's something where we believe this will definitely stay. And I think a lot of also probably the e-wallets are getting now a bit more adoption here in Malaysia, etc., which was typically quite lagging actually behind that. So I think all of this coming together, really, again, what I said at the beginning, it's going to be a very omni-channel experience, where customers are much more flexible in terms of the way they get their food, to just find the most convenient way for themselves in the specific use case they're at that moment.
Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. Yeah, that's a very, very interesting take. I love how you mentioned the e-wallets and how people are attached to their phones even more so. So that's a part of that new normal that we see. I totally agree with you on that too. Kelvin, what's your take on this? What do you see as this new normal post-COVID situation, and how we as cloud kitchen operators will be growing or moving? What directions? What do you see?
I think Mario and Jonathan already sum all of what I want to share with you. But let me share the perspective from brands, because basically we are collaborating with a lot of cloud kitchens, right? We're utilizing cloud kitchen as our main channel to sales, also online food delivery platform. So what I see is innovations is the key, because right now, as you know, me, as my background is from conventional F&B restaurant, food sometimes is a low entry barrier market, especially now when everybody can register their brands inside the platform. You flooded the market with a lot of new brands, a lot of new things, which is good actually, because it it shows the appetite of the growing industry of online delivery. But if we want to make this sustainable market become a sustainable market, we have to create an innovative products, innovative brands. Not only copying other brands, selling a cheaper price. There's gonna be a price war. Suddenly promotions everywhere, and it's just suddenly gonna killing everyone in the market. So it's very important to do it differently from brand perspective. Especially, I think Jason knows it better when the big brands also start to expand beyond opening outlets like conventional way. They also adapting this delivery stuff. And in terms of brands, we also must realize that expanding. I'm talking in the perspective from Indonesia, actually. The market, sometimes people only see it in major cities where food deliveries already penetrated, but actually there's a lot of tier 2, tier 3 cities here in Indonesia, and I also believe in Southeast Asia, where eventually the food delivery market will penetrate at someday at that point. But when the competition is too saturated in the one cities or one region, it's gonna slow down. So I think what drives it's gonna be a hyper growth for our industry in the next few years is where a lot of brands also trying to expand, utilizing people like Victor, like Jason, who like Mario, who expand their cloud kitchens also into tier 2, tier 3 cities. Preparing the infrastructures into the next cities, where because the food market itself is very, very huge, as you know. I don't know the number in Southeast Asia, but here in Indonesia, I think the food delivery market is still less than 10% of our total food market. So we barely scratch the surface. The potential is very, very high. A lot of things to explore, and I think this should be a collective effort, especially us in here. Everybody needs to create a collaborative effort to grow the market first, beyond than just cities, major cities.
Thank you, Kelvin. I really like your brand-centric point of view on this, and it gives us a little different angle when we talk about these different things. Jason, what about you? What are your thoughts here about how this new normal is? You launched, I think 2 years ago, and pretty much immediately COVID was right then and there at your doorfront. What do you see, and how do you see these drivers and how it's affected you?
I think it's exciting times. I think as echoing everyone said, I think I think everyone recognizes that there's a huge amount of runway ahead of us. I myself also came from somewhat of a F&B background, been involved in the business for about 10 years. And really from QSRs to fast casual, there hasn't really been anything new in the F&B business for, the good part of 20, 30 years. And I think for the first time, we're seeing, this because of COVID, I think it heightened the awareness of delivery. And I think it's brought on sort of a multiplicity of different ways of doing delivery, ways of doing brands, ways of representing existing brands, pivoting into new brands, and so on the brand side, I think it's super exciting for consumers. A lot of new varieties are coming to be available to the consumers on a delivery basis. And at the same time, getting better at doing it. People are caring more about packaging. People are caring more about how he travels. So I think super exciting times for consumers. And then, as I think Jonathan has said earlier, different methods of delivery. I think is with QR coding, with geolocating, even in physical restaurants. servers, contactless. I think all these things are as a result of COVID. But it's introducing a whole new experience for dining in, for takeaway, for delivery. So I think, and then the DSPs are doing different things as well. It's not just a one shot scooter car delivery. Now people are doing different verticals in delivery. Q-commerce is emerging. So I think it's super exciting for the consumer to be sort of what's to come, what's to be expected. So yeah, no, I think exciting times ahead.
Thank you for sharing, Jason. I agree with you. It's really is exciting times ahead. I see, you mentioned Q-commerce or quick commerce. I'm probably sure that's another chat in another group, but I mean, I can't, it's crazy to me. I see for Q-commerce, just to hijack the conversation real quick, I see in the US, in Europe, they want to do 10-minute deliveries for groceries. I come from that space as well, and that just boggles my mind when we used to do, at best 30 minutes. And we thought, wow, 30 minutes is killing everybody. And now, just 2-3 years later, people want to do 10-minute deliveries. So, I'm sure everyone here is nodding their head, but, at the end of the day, consumers are really enjoying all these new services, all these new products that all of us have to offer. So yeah, let's continue though. Compared to the conventional traditional restaurants, I think, at least how I see it, cloud kitchens have the potential to access more data and larger amounts of data, whether it be for menu creation or location selection or even more, right? I mean, just to share a little bit, my parents owned restaurants, and back in the day, they don't have all this information. They're just like, oh, this place seems okay. The rent is not too expensive. I think people here would eat Chinese food. Let's do it. But I'm sure, 40 years later now in 2021, that's not exactly how all of us look at data at all. So how do you leverage it? Mario, let's kick off with you once more.
So I would say, Victor, that at least in this market in Indonesia and in developing Southeast Asia, I think right now we as more of a technology-driven company in the cloud kitchen space, we try to use as much data as we can, but we are still in this transitionary kind of more time in the industry where you are moving. You're getting closer to a technology company, but you're ultimately, but still a lot of the F&B limitations of data about customers, about, I think you can manage a lot of internal data, but external data, the access to external data is still very much limited. So I think that is going to be a challenge that we're going to see for the next 2-3 years. I think Kelvin would also see similar challenges, and I would say it's not just Indonesia. I would say if you go to Philippines, Vietnam, all of these countries, this lack of access to data, just because today it's a duopoly, or I guess Indonesia is expanding in terms of delivery platforms, but the key delivery platforms are still limiting their access to data because that becomes still a very strong part of their competitive advantage. So we as an infrastructure player, we are actually building a few initiatives to manually start collecting data for our brand partners, with the expectation that we either figure out how to automate it internally, or at one point we will be able to get access to that data from the source directly. So I think data is a sensitive topic, but it is a key challenge in the industry that we are looking at and figuring out how to solve pretty much at the moment.
Thanks, Mario. Yeah, you are right. In most countries, it's either a duopoly or there are three competitors as far as delivery platforms go. And sometimes it's tough to get some of the data you need to be shared with you. And I think a lot of us do feel that way. But how about you, Jonathan? How do you guys look at data and how do you leverage that?
Yeah, I think it's a super important point. for us, because essentially how we first started out was that we all of the foods, all of our menu and all of the dishes, etc., was developed by like in a very traditional way, right? Where you hire some visionary chef, and then he's this creative, big personality, and then he comes up with some great a new dish, and then maybe it works, maybe it doesn't work. Mm-hmm. And maybe if it works after a couple of months, it just consumers are not interested anymore. So what we realized during that time was like the failure rate was so high of these new menu items, and for us, the big ambition is to kind of constantly innovate on the menu and to launch new menu items. That we quickly realized this is like this is going to be a big challenge if we kind of follow this traditional approach in that new context. So we worked very hard on kind of getting a lot of access to data, and therefore we have our own app, right, where we collect data from the customer for every order. So in terms of feedback when they order from us, we have more than 40% of people like essentially rating and saying, okay, I like this dish. Hey, can you make it more spicy or something like that? And this data is then used to completely change the menu development process. So now we require quite a lot of mindset shift internally, which was not easy to do because it's very kind of different what's been done in the traditional industry, right? So instead of having now our R&D team kind of constantly coming up with this new creative ideas, they essentially have to look at the data, and it's always like we always ask them, okay, what do the customers say? What do they want? What's the feedback, etc. So that's now how we operate. Again, kind of underlining how important data is for us in terms of the menu innovation and just serving customers better. But it's really these two pillars. On one hand, right, having like a very different approach in terms of the new product development, and on the other hand, having developed our own app for where we can then serve customers with our own fleet and have the direct access. Because indeed, from when working with like aggregator partners, there's obviously always this tension in terms of what's the data that we can get, what's the data they want to share. So it's always a bit of a challenge.
Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. I think something very interesting that you mentioned a little bit earlier, you find this creative visionary chef and they make stuff and it works, doesn't work, we make some assumptions. And I think we try to meld this vision of food, right, or cuisine, and try to back it up with this data. So we don't guarantee success, but at least we can reduce the brand's failure rate by a little bit or by some amount, right? Because it's sort of like these two yin and yangs that really can balance it out. So let's go down to the next set of questions, right? So there's someone with a background, or several people actually, with background in F&B in this discussion right now, in the more traditional sense, right? So I think DailyBox saw an opportunity in the cloud kitchen model and pivoted quite successfully. How do you think your previous experience has helped you to think differently when it comes to a tech company like DailyBox? Kelvin.
Sorry. Yeah, like you mentioned earlier, Victor, data plays an important role, especially most of our teams right now in DailyBox is the team that helped me building our conventional restaurants a few years back. So going into this industry, definitely we learned a lot how to analyzing the data, because as Jonathan also mentioned, that it's very important for you to innovate new menu, especially with the limitations of data available out there. You need to scrap some data with your own resources, trying to gather what works, what not. But I think growing in the food industry for us, for our team, help us to analyzing in terms of operations excellence, in terms of costs. As we know in our industry, COGS, food costs, plays a very, very important role, especially when the food delivery takes some commissions from our top line, right? So it's a variable cost, and how we able to maintain I always said food business is all about how to you not cutting down your costs, but managing your costs so you can get with value for money products to the customer. So what helped us is actually we also put our eye on target into growth, because as we all know, these tech implementations in F&B making us become, at hyper growth level. And when you're growing at that stage, there's something that you will compromise, such as quality, such as consistency, and you have to able to manage it. So our team really focused on the operations, and it helped us to reach a profitable level since our day one operation. So we hit negative some of the months during the hard times because of the pandemic. But most of the times, right now, if we analyze it, I think our company, Daily Box, as a group, operating on profitable level, and we're trying to maintain that way while looking for double-digit growth. But yeah, it's kind of challenging because I'm also want to thank partners like Mario who help us to reach that growth level, because sometimes expanding to new cities, new locations, you're opening like 5 to 6 outlets in a month. You must, like you said, Victor, we want to minimize the failure, right? Because when you do operations at that fast scale, it will at some point the margin errors was getting larger, right? So yes, our team's still trying and learning to utilizing the data that we had to improve our operations.
Thank you for sharing, Kelvin. That's I think that's great, and you are right. It's how do you expand multiple locations in a month without compromising on quality or quality control? It's all about operations and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Jason, you have I think a very extensive background in finance, and I'd love to hear how that has added to the rapid growth of your company, Just Kitchen.
Well, thanks, Victor. Extensive, I don't know. I have some background in finance. I think the part that really, made me, that's helped me, I think, is it's always at the forefront of thought when taking in investments, funding from equity partners, shareholders. It's how you're spending it. It's I always want to spend each dollar for that it's contributing to value. It's either in investing in human capital or infrastructure capital, or some sort of equity that is going to generate a return down the road that's building value for the company. I think that's very important, because as you take money in, people are entrusting you with obviously with their investment dollars. So I think having that sort of investment banking background is, I'm always thinking about value. How is that dollar? How am I going to take that dollar in and then turn it into $2 on the output? It may not be immediate, but it's got to be building towards something. And I think just having the concept of that building, sort of investing in building blocks is, I think it's really the one single largest thing that's helped me in navigating sort of through this new frontier, if you will.
Awesome, Jason. Thank you so much. I mean, that is a great way for a founder to think about, or a CEO to think about how money comes in, how you hope and you target that the dollar that comes in, at least eventually, is more than $1 as it goes out or gets returned back to your investor. And I think that's the right attitude for all of us. Obviously, as a startup, we cannot always guarantee that, of course, but I think that's the essence or the spirit is, I'm sure, something for all of us in this chat right now. And I think that's a great way for you to explain it. So thank you so much. So I want to go into specific questions for specific founders and CEOs now. So first, Mario, Yummy Corp recently announced a very interesting partnership with Grab to help F&B businesses in Indonesia digitize. What impacts have you seen with this partnership? And do you see opportunities for similar international partnerships using Grab's platform?
So just to give a little bit of context, right? The main core idea of the partnership is that, as Yummy Corp is an operator for other F&Bs, what we have seen in Grab's use case is that Grab has their own set of, cloud kitchens that are primarily providing spaces for brands to operate, right? But what they've seen is that, they may have a few brands that are doing well in one of their kitchens, but when they ask them to join them in a different location, that brand would not have the resource and manpower management capabilities to join and grow in other kitchens, right? So that's kind of where Yummy comes in through this partnership with Grab, right? Grab will introduce them to us, and then we will be operating those brands inside Grab's other kitchens. So for us, I think that is a breakthrough in terms of a business model for Grab scenario, just because they would then be able to really help thriving, essentially businesses that are ready to scale and thrive to scale up inside their platform. And we're contributing to that kind of that in a role of essentially helping them. We're essentially, it's not as crude as like essentially an outsource, but we are empowering capabilities that they don't have or they are not yet able to build in-house, right? So we're looking at doing this successfully in Indonesia Indonesia first. So I think we're not really, I would say there's still a lot of learning and a lot of adjustment and a lot of kind of, details that we're working out together. But as we work this out, the plan, and we would hope to really roll this out in other markets where we'll probably, as Kelvin mentioned earlier, we'll probably look into other cities in Indonesia first. So the tier 2, tier 3 cities where Grab is present. But afterwards, we're also looking into seeing if this model would work in other countries. It may not work in every country, but there are markets that we have identified to be sensible to do this.
Thank you for sharing, Mario. I think it's a very sound idea, and you're already in the process of implementing and learning more. And I'm sure we'll see some great results. I look forward to learning more about it in the news or in our private chats.
Yes.
Jonathan, so before rebranding to Pop Meals, Damakan, as I understand it, but please correct me if I'm wrong, placed an emphasis on healthy offerings and was sort of operated as an online-only restaurant. What was the realization that led to this pivot towards how Pop Meals is operating now?
Yeah, I think for us, essentially, what the pandemic did was to kind of accelerate a couple of decisions that we always had in the back of our head. So indeed, for us, it was always kind of the ambition to build a brand that can serve customers, delicious food in the most convenient way and affordable for kind of every day, right? And previously with the Damakan brand was, healthy, but especially also premium positioned. So it was always kind of for us, when we first started, that this was a bit like the initial niche market we want to go into in order to then broaden up the positioning of the brand and with that the target market, right? In a bit in a way like how many big companies did it, maybe a bit of an odd analogy, but like say a Facebook, right? When they started in the first, just focusing on certain universities like Harvard or so, and then expanded from there into really a much more broader appealing brand and product. And that's kind of like the trajectory we always had in the back of our head. But then, of course, we didn't expect to do this rebranding and this transition into that so quickly. I think, again, the pandemic, I guess there was a bit of a blessing in disguise that we then said, okay, so many things are changing. If we want to make really big decisions quick, then now it's the best time to do that. And then so last year, we then essentially just made that switch quite brutal in a sense. But yeah, never looked back. Now we're super excited because it's obviously very much aligned with kind of where we want to be, where we wanted to be in say like 2 or 3 years from now. We are there now today.
Thank you for sharing, Jonathan. I mean, looking from afar and knowing Damakan, the brand, and how well it's done, it was pretty surprising from an outsider who doesn't work there to all of a sudden see one day, oh, we are now rebranded as Pop Meals. And now I have more in-depth insight from this idea where this is where you're going anyways. And, it's just because of the pandemic, you've decided to speed it up. And I love that aggressiveness, and I love the idea to just sort of jump in and go about it. Thanks again, Jonathan, for sharing that insight. Kelvin, so, I mean, Daily Box has done some very interesting things because you've collaborated with renowned chefs in menu and recipe creation, and you have the single brand as a platform, right? So what benefits has the single brand strategy brought, and how does that compare to multi-brands, in your opinion? Kelvin, the mute button.
So to emphasize what I said earlier about we want to create a brand that's sustainable. As you know, building a brand, a strong brand equity is not cheap. You have to put a lot of resources into it to building a strong brand, And sometimes in the food business, as you know, food is all about trend, right? So we don't want that to happen, especially when the trend faded out. You have to, shutting down the brand. And especially when we build brands like Daily Box, it's so versatile, right? We can offer Chinese food, Indonesian, Japanese food, as long as it's in the form of a rice, but you can call it Daily Box. So we're thinking that. So why we need to separate our resources, especially at that time, we are very low in capital, actually, Victor. So we're thinking that why we have to spray and pray instead. Let's just focus on building a strong brand and collaborating with renowned chef like Master Chef, like Chef Yuna, Chef Renata, with millions of followers. We're also collaborating with public figure with millions of subscribers, and now we also adding menus from MSME. Even from a housewife, now we can, educate them, teach them how to produce consistency products, helping them during the pandemic. Even a great story that I heard is some of our partners able to bring their kids to college because they supply their products to Daily Box now. So we're seeing that we have grown from selling a rice box into become a platform to empower MSME, empower other brands even. Right now we have bread brands. We're collaborating with Bread Life, one of the bread chain here in Indonesia, to be our partner. So we don't need to make everything by ourselves right now. What I always like the analogy of IKEA. I said we're like IKEA of the food, where you don't have your designers. You have a lot of great designers design products for you. You don't have the manufacturer. We expand our sales through Cloud Kitchen also with a lot of partners, and hopefully we can collaborate when I expand to other countries with Victor, Jason, and Jonathan. And so as we boost Daily Box as our main brand for ready-to-eat products, we also have brands like Daily Meals where it's frozen products because, and also Shirato, a Japanese, because the position we position our brand the way we position our brand is more like Daily Box is more like comfort food brand, rice focused brand. Shirato is like focus on Japanese, where the segment market for Japanese food here in Indonesia is already there. So we want to tap into that market. And Daily Meals is more like ready to serve pre-packed meal. You just need to frozen it and defrost it and serve it for family, because Daily Box and Shirato serve single customers. So yeah, I think working become a platform, make you a limitless innovations, right? We want to introduce the richness of Indonesian culinary to Taiwan, to Philippines, to Singapore, to across the region, and we also want to bring the richness of culinary from Taiwan, Philippines, Singapore here into Indonesia. So it enabled us to do that. Because right now we have grown not only a brand that serves certain kind of products, but become a platform for everybody to collaboration.
Kelvin, thank you so much. I love that explanation. And yes, I do hope, and I'm sure, Jonathan and Jason do hope that we all get to collaborate with one another sooner versus later. Jason, so Just Kitchen has done something that sticks out to, I'm sure, a lot of people, not just in food tech. Just Kitchen has become publicly traded in Canada, and then following up with that, also in Europe and American markets. This is something that is really amazing. Your current operations are still focused on Asia with Taiwan and Hong Kong, as you mentioned earlier. But you have stated publicly and also privately that you're looking for global expansion into the Americas. So do you see that same business model that we do here in Asia working in America? Or do you have a different view of how to go into the Americas? And an example, for example, not just America, but new markets in general.
Yeah, absolutely. I think every region is different. So as mentioned earlier, we're coming at it from two sides, right? So we've got the infrastructure side, and then we've got the content side. And the content really was the genesis of Just Kitchen. It was about bringing home, the sense of being close to home. Having grown up in North America myself, it was one of those things. Whenever I came back to Taiwan to visit, after getting settled in and getting over jet lag and whatnot, the first thing that I always looked to do was to go and search out the food that I hadn't had for a year or whatever. That's being away from home. So really, it was about bringing that closeness, that feeling of home to every market. And as we land into different markets, as we're in Hong Kong, we're in the process of absorbing local brands from Hong Kong and bringing it elsewhere. So it becomes a platform where it just kind of brings the world closer, our consumers closer to home. So that, in of itself doesn't change regardless of our, whichever market we go into. In the US, we would want to, bring Taiwanese food to Taiwanese Americans. We want to bring Hong Kong food to people that's come from Hong Kong, Philippines. So it's kind of that overall platform to serve people that miss the food and also introduce that food to a new clientele. So I think that is universal. Where I think it does differ a little bit would be the infrastructure side. Geography, population density. I think all that comes into play as how you build out that distribution network, as I mentioned. In Taiwan, in Hong Kong, where it's much more dense, in Indonesia, in the Philippines, we can do the kitchens where logistically all that kind of stuff sort of works. Whereas in places like North America and other parts of the world, where it's a little further distributed out, it may be a partnership, or it may be going into an infrastructure provider where we go and operate ourselves. So in the context of infrastructure, I think it requires adoption. But in terms of content, digitalization of SOP, of build charts, of
of sort of how that cuisine is brought to the market, I think that would be that would be on a standard that we would sort of deploy universally. But yeah, so two different parts and sort of two different ways of adopting.
Jason, thank you so much for sharing. Very clear and concise as far as your thoughts on this topic. And yeah, it's a very, very interesting new world where we're all moving forward, making the first steps. This is sort of like food delivery 10 years ago when we were all trying out a lot of different things. And then if this doesn't work, I'm going to try that and vice versa. So very excited. And I think our time is more or less up. But I do first and foremost want to share our speakers, Mario, Jonathan, Kelvin, Jason. I want to thank you guys on behalf of Foodland Ventures and myself, obviously, for taking the time out and chatting and sharing with everyone what's been going on lately with you guys and your companies. So that's the first thing. And I want to, again, thank you for all the people who are signing in and listening and viewing this. And this is the APAC F&B Innovation Summit by Foodland Ventures. And I want to say thank you to everybody, and we're signing off. Thanks again. Bye-bye.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Working with you all.
Thanks again for joining us today at the APAC F&B Innovation Summit. We've seen innovators bring revolutions to improve supply chain efficiencies, the leading changes in offering a more sustainable future by the alternative protein movement. We also take a peek at the advancement of autonomous technologies and the possibilities of having unmanned stores in the near future. We see how technology is changing the way we grow, consume, and even pay for our food, and how, with the growing demand of deliveries, restaurants will take a completely different form.
The demand for technology is increasing in the food and beverage sector due to growing digitalization, climate change awareness, and adoption from consumers. These factors are bringing innovative startups to make a change in the industry. There's no doubt that in the past few years, especially we're facing a global pandemic, the dynamics of the food and beverage sector have changed and become more consumer-oriented, transparent, and tech adoption has been quickly accelerated.
Big thanks to the National Development Council, Ministry of Science and Technology, Taiwan Tech Arena, Startup Terrace for advising and supporting the summit. Also, we would like to thank our sponsors today, Global Payments and San Pellegrino, for being our partners on the journey of innovations.
Also, we would like to thank our community partners, Startup Grind Singapore, Deloitte, Digitimes, Taiwan Venture Capital Association, Eatable Adventures, FIDET, Taiwan Startup Stadium, Big Idea Ventures, SproutX, and more.
Lastly, we would like to thank everyone who made the summit possible. On behalf of the team at Foodland Ventures, we thank the speakers who've offered their invaluable insights today, the startups participating, and the amazing audience from all over the world. Special thanks to Andrew Yang and Carol Huang from Presentality, as well as Gladys Lee.
We hope with the platform today, we can bring together a bigger, stronger, and more connected agri-food tech ecosystem than ever before, to push even further for the collective growth of the industry and compact challenges ahead of us together.
After the summit, the networking and the expo will remain open until 8 p.m. The videos will be available on Foodland Ventures Facebook and YouTube channel shortly.
If you're a startup or a food industry partner interested in knowing more about us, please reach out to Foodland Ventures. The application to our VC and accelerator is also open for startups across the world. You can apply through foodlandventures.com.
Thank you again for joining us today. Let's drive the food industry forward with more innovations.